Hello, 6th grade students. It's your science teacher, Mrs. Roselle. I just wanted to pop on here and share with you some really important information that you need to know for the upcoming middle school science fair. One thing that you need to start thinking about are the due dates. So you have already had your science fair packets to go home on actually December 13th. And you've also already had your top 5 choices due on December 18th. The next important thing coming up is our project summary sheet, which is due Friday, January 10th. So the first Friday that you come back from break. Then the next important date is when your actual trifold board and report are due, which is March 23rd, 2020. And the science fair itself, which is March 31st, 2020. So all of this, your top 5 choices and everything, you've already done. And you've already gone on Science Buddies or another website to find your project. This is the next thing that's due, the project summary sheet. I know it says 1/10/19, it's supposed to be 1/10/20. And this is your next thing that is due. So you want to put your name on this, and then you want to have a project title, and it should be something different than the title that was given to you on Science Buddies. Be creative with it, because a lot of times the judges have seen these projects before, and if it has a different name, it definitely will stand out more, even if it is the same project or a similar project to something that they've seen. The problem should be written as a question, and I'll get more into that as the video goes on. The hypothesis should be in an if-then format, which I will also go into. And materials, you should be able to find those and list those easily. Your procedure are just the steps that are going to be taken. So it would be the first step is gather your materials, or second step would be to test your first trial. Whatever it might be, you need to make sure you have a parent signature and a student signature and the date. That's really important, because it's important for you to remember that for 6th grade, it's your science final exam grade and your English final exam grade. So, as I've mentioned when we went through this packet, this is an experiment, not a model. And it's really important to know that, because the difference between an experiment and a model is that an experiment does trials. You go through different trials in your experiment to test out to see whether your experiment or your question and your hypothesis works out. As I mentioned in class before, I did my 5th grade science project on soap and which types of laundry detergent best works to get grease out. So I had to try different laundry detergents, so those are my different trials, in order to figure out which one worked best. So we should always be doing an experiment, not a model. This page in your science fair packet is also another important page, because it kind of walks you through what you need to do in order to complete your science fair project. First, you need to find the problem, which is what should be filled out in your problems section of your project summary. Then you will research the problem. Another thing that's important with that is that you need to research online and have 2 separate sources besides sciencebuddies.org if that's where you found your project website. You need to make a hypothesis, which we talked about should be in an if-then format. And then you're going to conduct the experiment, and you should have at least 3 to 5 trials. So with my experiment that I mentioned before, I had to try out 3 or 4 different laundry detergents in order to figure out which one was the best to get rid of the grease for the rag that I had. Then you want to write about what you learned. So I learned that OxyClean, that laundry detergent, was the best one for the grease. And how does that apply to real world? Well, if I have a grease stain, I'm not going to use just your regular laundry detergent. I'm going to use OxyClean, because that's what's going to get it out the best. You form a conclusion, and then you're going to organize all of your data in tables and graphs. this page in your science fair packet will help you come up with a good question if you're struggling with how to create a question. So for my sample science fair project that I told you about with the soap, my question would be, which soap works best to remove grease? Okay. Because I have specifically which it's going, if I'm looking at this part of the paper, it's following this situation, which laundry detergent removes grease the best. And these pages in your packet really just help you walk through what you need to understand. Another important thing is your hypothesis. It should be if-then, which means if something, then this will happen. So for example problem, which paper towel is most absorbent? If brand X is as thick as paper towel, then it'll be the most absorbent. So for me, if OxyClean has the best reviews, then it will be the best at getting out the grease stains. Moving on in the packet, it's really important to read this page about quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. The important thing about this is anything that you put in your paper or on your board that is not in your own words is not your own words. You need to make sure that if you're quoting, you put quotations around it. If you're paraphrasing, that you're not just kind of using some of the words, that you're really, truly summarizing what you have and what information you have gained. And the best way to do that is really to read the entire text, maybe highlight some different points, summarizing it and putting it in your own words. You know, after you've read something about whatever your project is on, you need to say, okay, well, how do I explain this in my own words? If I was telling someone what I just read, what would that be like? And that's the best way to use quotations, paraphrase, and summarize. And I would definitely encourage you to look at this sample. Testing your hypothesis, again, you should have 3 to 5 trials, and that's really important. Collecting data, I've mentioned this when I first gave out the packet, but you should have a graph on your board and also in your packet, or not in your packet, I'm sorry, in your research paper. It can be the same chart. It can be a pie graph, it could be a bar graph, it could be a line graph, it could be a table, but it should convey the information that you have found. So for me, with the soap project, I ended up finding that after, 2 or 3 washes, that OxyClean was the best, but after like 5 washes, Tide was doing a pretty good job getting the grease out, but in reality, you would want something that you'd have to wash less rather than wash more. So then this kind of the next page gives you just a sample for you to use and try your own experiment out. And that's also what these other pages are for. And then this page, step 4, is a really important page because it lays out exactly what your your trifold board should look like. It says that your title should be front and center, number 1. Your purpose should be on the side. Your hypothesis, everything. You even actually put a copy of your report on your board. It also tells you how big your board should be, and it does have to be able to stand on the table. You can also choose to bring in parts of your project itself. That's not going to take away from any points that you might get, but you got to make sure that it is something that's easily carryable because you will be having to set it up yourself. So definitely take a look at this page in your packet. These are some sample questions that we might be looking at. This is another important page, the science fair checklist. It kind of just makes sure that you're on track. And this is another page, the writing your report page, that helps you figure out if you're on track with having everything that you need in your report. I also made a note to have an additional 2 resources other than Science Buddies. This page is a sample of what the paper should look like. It should have a title page, a table of contents, purpose, hypothesis. Your research should be at about a page. So if you notice that this starts on one page and continues on another one, but if you put them together, it'd be a little bit more than a page. That's what you should have. Your materials, your procedure can be numbered exactly like this. Your charts graph also must be in your paper, your conclusion, and also your bibliography. If you have any questions, I would definitely look at Purdue University when it comes to that. Also, another great website is called EasyBib, and it's a website that I actually use a lot. I would be very careful because there are a lot of ads that pop up, but what you can do is you can create your citation, and it will kind of guide you through the different steps that you need to fill out for the MLA citation. You can figure out if it's a website, a book, a journal. Most times it's going to be a website. And then you can even copy and paste the website in there, and then it'll ask you to just follow a couple of different questions. But if you see already, there's an ad popping up. So just kind of be careful with that. Coming back to the packet, the last page is the rubric. I will be using this exact rubric, not changing anything, when I am grading your report and your trifold board. So that's a really important thing to look at. Now in the next video that I'm giving you, that I'm going to show you some examples of last year's trifold boards so that you can get an idea of some things to have and some things not to have on your science fair project boards.